walk, that walk. Keep rolling, 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 rolling. Keep rolling, 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 rolling. Keep rolling.
This is Walk and Roll Live.
This is Walk and Roll Live.
A podcast dedicated to the disabled community, sharing stories of courage and triumph,
Joy and discovery.
and everyday successes and challenges. Now, here are your hosts, Doug Vincent and Eric Aguilar.
Hello and welcome to Walk and Roll Live. I'm Doug Vincent along with Eric Aguilar. Good morning, Eric. How are you?
What's happening, true believers? I'm Eric Aguilar. Man, how y'all doing this morning?
What's today?
Taco Tuesday.
That's right. You got it. Did you have tacos last week?
Oh, yeah. Best tacos we could ever eat. But for Thursday, we're having nachos instead of tacos.
That's all right. So it's Nacho Thursday?
Nacho Thursday.
Nacho Thursday. Yeah, I went to the, like I was saying last week, went to the American Legion Hall where the Old Farts Racing Team, which is the car club that I belong to, they have their monthly meeting there, and it's Taco Tuesday. So yeah, definitely had tacos there. So it was a good day, good meeting too. A lot more participants. It's been kind of falling off the attendance, so it was good to see everybody. So yeah, good time. Anything else this past week worth sharing with us?
Well, I took my darling shopping. I got her a couple of surprises. We had my father-in-law join us. I still hold the record high score on Nintendo bowling and hopefully soon the golfing. And yesterday, me and my father-in-law had a really good time doing a power cruising on the Wii. We get the nunchucks, and it looks like you're steering the jet ski. And you have it on the screen.
Awesome.
I still need to learn how to steer. I was like, wow.
that's part of the fun, right? So what's your high score in bowling on the Wii?
259 even.
259.
I made a couple attempts to do the perfect game, but I was missing by maybe 2 or 3 strikes every time.
That's what keeps you going.
Just when I'm close, I'm like, no,
yeah,
it's right there.
That's Eric's holy grail, trying to get that perfect game. So your father-in-law, he's close second. How close? What's his top score?
About 240 something ish.
So he's closing in on you.
Somewhat, yes. Because here's the crazy thing: the first week we had the Wii, he had the top score, and then it switched over to me, and then he took it back, and then about a week later, I took it back to high score. I've had it ever since. So,
oh man, that's awesome. So it's like a bit of back and forth battle. All right, well, you keep us posted. Anything else this past week? I'm trying to think of anything that I did that kind of stood out. No, I won't get into the minutia of it, but just having some homeowner issues around. I had an electrical problem, and it turned out to be something so simple, but woo, those electricians, they got to make a living, but man, you're talking close to $1,000 to, fix a wire that came loose on a plug, basically is what it was. But, you need the expertise, the tools to track those things down and all that. So
the labor.
Yeah. The labor. So, it's nice to have. The thing was, it's been out for months. It's a chain of plugs in my house that I just don't happen to use. So I can't even say when they went out. I just noticed it because, again, I won't get into all the details, but it took me a while to even notice that it was out. So since I wasn't using any of those plugs, there was no real urgency to get it fixed. And I was trying to get another fella to come and he wasn't coming. So I called an electrician and blah, 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 people problems here.
Speaking of electricity, Doug.
Yeah.
One of the tricks that I always do, even during the summertime, is I make sure I wash early in the morning, so that way if you do it early in the morning after 4 o'clock, the electricity becomes more expensive than usual.
That's right.
Depending on if you have regular electricity or solar.
So your laundry, right? You talking about washing? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm using laundry as an example.
Very nice. Yeah, that's a good tip. I try to do those things as well. I have solar, so it's a lot cheaper, than the old SCE. All righty. Well, listen, today, it's really on me. I tried to get a guest for today, and there's a whole bunch of people that I've contacted and who want to come on the show. It's just they weren't available for today. And again, partly on me because I kind of contacted them a little late. Sometimes 3 or 4 days is not enough time for people to come on with their busy schedules, that kind of thing. So, and some people, it's tough to make it on Tuesday. So we'll have to kind of maybe move our schedule around a little bit to accommodate them. But I came up with a bright idea, and we'll find out at the end of the episode if the idea was bright or not. But I figured we would just kind of talk about all the different issues that pertain to the disabled community, accessible transportation and inclusion and education, those kinds of things. We'll go through them one by one and see how we fare with our knowledge. And I really got to say on the top, and I may repeat this, is that we're not experts in any way, shape, or form, other than our life's experience being disabled our whole lives. So we bring that to it, and just being in the community, you kind of pick up some of the expertise and the knowledge, and about ADA and all of those different things. So to the best of my recollection, and I'm sure Eric, you'll do the same. We'll share that part that we know factually, and of course, our opinions about our life's experiences, and we'll kind of share some of those, and our opinions about maybe some fixes that they could do. We'll talk about those things too, and maybe kind of open the able-bodied person's eyes who administers these things. The construction guy who goes in to put that in, well, he's probably just following whatever the plans are, but the people that are making the decisions about simple things about which way doors swing and all of that, it just, I can't blame people for not understanding because they don't have to live it. They're just going in to put a door in, and they don't realize that how it impacts somebody in a chair or something like that. So anyway, we'll talk about all that. So let's take a quick break. We're coming to you live from the Aguiar Professional Training Studio, and we'll get a word from them, and we'll be right back. Right, Eric?
Time for some coffee, folks.
Aguiar Professional Training offers comprehensive organizational development and organizational effectiveness services for corporations, nonprofits, educational institutions, and individuals. What they do is improve work environments in key areas, such as performance management gaps, group interactions, morale and trust building, and team dynamics, to name just a few. Using a strength-based approach in conjunction with individual or group coaching, all of the strategies have produced significant results. APT also assists with managing change, improving work processes, training, and management of human capital. Learn more at aguiarprofessionaltraining.com. AGUIAR professionaltraining.com.
Welcome back, folks. I'm Eric Eno and my buddy Doug. Today we're going to talk to you about the ins and outs of some of the accessible transportation, inclusive education, assistive technology, representation in the media, accessible design, employment accessibility, advocacy and activism, health and wellness, and my personal favorite, sports and recreation.
Oh, good. We'll save that one till last, right? And okay, let's start at the top of the list. Accessible transportation. So you don't drive, right?
Oh, no, I wish I did.
Yeah, so you're reliant on public transportation. I'd love to hear your experiences. How does that work for you? Do you take the bus or do you take Access? You've heard of Access? In our area, it's called Access.
I've never taken Access before, but when I lived in Grand Terrace, California, I took the shuttle bus that was called the 325 bus at the time. It was a little shuttle bus that would actually take you out of the city and leave you down the hill at the bus stop at Colton, right across the street from Washington and Moheeve. And depending on where you're going after that, you had two choices. You could hop on the 19 or the 8 bus to go to San Bernardino. But if you went to San Bernardino area, you would take the 8 bus at the time. Now, if you were going to Redlands or Loma Linda, you would take the 19 bus. And what's really cool is if you were going that way regardless, the 325 shuttle bus would drive all the way from Grand Terrace to the VA hospital in Loma Linda to drop you off.
So the shuttle, was that a fixed path? I mean, you got on it at one point and it only took you to point B.
Yeah, but it would take me down there within 20 minutes, and it was
Yeah,
operated by Omnitrans at the time.
right. Exactly. So, but what I'm wondering is you couldn't, it didn't have several destinations. You couldn't pick another destination. It was just that one site.
No.
And then from that point, you could go where you wanted to go from there.
Right. And let's say I was going into Riverside, I would take the 325 the opposite way within the city, and then stop, and it would stop at the Riverside Transit bus stop, and then to get to do Riverside Transit, you hop on the 14 to get into going to Riverside and beyond.
So I got to ask you. So, how was the accessibility? Getting on the bus. How was that?
Before I even had my walking stick, the driver recognized that I had a disability of some sort, and when he noticed my walk, he courteously, lowered the bus a little bit to make it easier for me to step on, which is very, very, very neat.
Yeah.
And with the RTA buses, they have these little USB cables where you can charge your laptop and your phone. And if I was taking a 3-hour trip per se, that would give me time, to take a nap on the bus or catch up on some homework, depending on where I was going.
Now, so to people that aren't familiar with it, they have an option with the buses. Some buses, not all buses probably, but where the bus will kneel, what they call kneel, and it'll bring where the steps down closer to the ground, so you don't have that first step isn't so high, right?
Right.
Yeah. So my van will do that. The van that I have, my accessible van, has a ramp that comes out, but as the ramp is coming out, the whole right side of the van kind of drops down, so that ramp isn't as steep. So it's a little easier for me to get up that ramp and get in. So, and there are ADA compliances as far as those ramps. You see if you travel around your community, sometimes where there are already accessible, usually they're at the corners. They'll have the ramps at the corners, and you'll see them changing those out. Sometimes when those were put in, they didn't meet the ADA code, and they were too steep, so they have to reconfigure them. And it's very simple. You just have to have a foot of length on your ramp every inch it rises. So a 36-inch rise would be a 36-foot ramp. So at any rate, so everything else about the bus was good. One thing I wanted to note, because you mentioned Access there for a while. Access is a service where you can call. It's an accessible bus. It's got a lift for a wheelchair for those who use wheelchairs. And again, this is in our area, and there may be a similar service in your area, but you could call them and order a bus to pick you up at a certain time. And I'm not sure if there's instances where it's no cost, but if there is a cost, it's reduced, and they'll take you to a specific destination. And then when you're ready to go, you just let them know that you want to be picked up at X time and taken back home or wherever you want to go. The only issue I've found with it is it's a bit unreliable. I don't know how the pickup was, but I know, the initial pickup, but I know we had some of our consumers that would be at Rolling Start, and they had ordered, a bus to come pick them up, say at 4:30. That's when we closed. And, we'd all be locking up and getting ready to go. And there'd be folks sitting out on our doorstep waiting for the bus. And, we'd hear stories how they had waited there an hour and a half. So, that's not good, and that's where advocacy comes in, and you really have to start to pressure those services on providing better service. Go ahead, Eric.
I used to really enjoy taking the bus early in the morning, like around 5 o'clock in the morning, because in the morning you'd have the entire bus to yourself. And from what I recall, even before COVID, the bus would go from, like, let's say 5 in the morning to sometimes 10 o'clock at night, depending on which way you're going and which buses are still available after that. Because I know buses go out of service right after a certain time during the daytime. And what's surprising is that even in spite of COVID, their bus fares haven't really gone up or changed a lot. God bless them.
Yeah. So when you would take the bus, there's would you find that they were reliable? So you weren't having to wait long periods of time for a bus to come by on a particular route, right?
Yeah, it's very rare that the buses would be late. Once in a here and there, in a blue moon, they would break down for whatever the reason,
Oh
but
yeah.
they'd only be stuck for maybe I'll say maybe no more than 10 minutes, and then they'd be on their way.
Yeah, good. I was going to ask, what constituted late. So, whereas the access bus sometimes it was an hour and a half, the most you experienced or typical was more like 5 or 10 minutes, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that's not bad. I mean, if you're needing to get to an appointment on time, then that might stress you out a little bit. But yeah, no, I understand. So,
And from my experience, the buses would get crowded no more than I'll say maybe 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon every day.
that was kind of the peak time.
And that's because of the high schools getting out. You know, people probably have afternoon appointments or
Yeah,
their
yeah,
own personal schedules or whatever the case may be.
yeah. Well, and I know again in our area, and hopefully it's the same way in your area, is that they're very sensitive to the needs of the disabled. They even provide some, I guess you call them trainings, classes where people could come and use the buses in a more of a controlled environment. Where there's not the stress of this bus pulls up and I've got to get on and get seated and pay the bus driver and all of those things that you have to do. So this is more of a situation where they take a bus and there's a class of people, however many people, and each person gets to kind of experience all of that without the pressure of doing it within a few moments. So they get that feel of getting on the bus, of how do I pay for the bus? Do you have a pass? Do you have to pay with change? I mean, I don't even know. I haven't taken a bus in eons. I think it was Fred Flintstone ages. But so all of those things, and then finding a seat. Then if you happen to be on a wheelchair, is there access to it? Is there, how do you kind of navigate that whole situation? So yeah, they're very sensitive to those things, and they do a good job of providing those trainings. So if you want to ride the bus in your area, you ever and you haven't ever before, contact your bus transportation department and see if they offer some of those things. So coming up next is inclusive education. Oh, one last thing, and I don't know if that really falls in this, but I'm going to put it in this accessible transportation. I just want to address the parking placard. And this is totally my opinion in most regards.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned a long time ago, and it's gotten better over the years. When they first came out, it seemed like everybody was kind of trying to. I don't think they fully understood it. So people that didn't have a placard were parking in those spots all the time. It's rare that you see somebody parked in those spots without a placard anymore. I think people have finally kind of got up to speed on that. But the other thing is that then what kicks in is the fraud. And I think that's really prevalent in some of those areas, in high density areas especially where there's a business community that comes into the downtown area, and parking is hard to find, or it's very expensive, to park in a parking structure. So people will get a placard fraudulently so that they can park in handicap spots, and it's cheaper that way. It looks like you have some thoughts. When it comes
to parking, though, Doug,
yeah,
people either have a placard or they have a sticker on their license plate.
Yes, there's either way, exactly, and and I've heard of many different stories, but grandma has one, and she passes, and then somebody starts takes it. Grandma's not using it anymore, and they start using it. And there's not a whole lot of enforcement that goes on. A policeman coming by and seeing that placard up in the car is not going to check it to see if it's a legit person using it. They're just not going to do that. At the same time, they get handed out fairly easily, and I know that the medical profession, they don't want to be the police. So if somebody asks for one, they generally will accommodate them fairly easily, even if it's a temporary one. But I've heard the stories too where, and this is anecdotal, so I don't know percentages wise how many of them are out there like that, and where doctors don't want to be the police to say, no, you can have one, you can't have one. They'll give it out and kind of let the chips fall as they may, I think. But and I've run into a few incidences at like sporting events where they want to see because you get DMV paperwork with a serial number that matches the serial number on your placard. And so I've been to events where they stop you going into the parking lot and they want to see that DMV documentation that has that serial number that matches the placard that you're using. So and I applaud them. Hey, great. And this is, having said all that, I've said this for years. You can ask my brother. It's probably documented. I've been saying this for at least 10 years. Part of the problem is everybody wants that great parking. They want the parking that's close. They want the parking that's up near the front of a store that they're pulling up to. And my simple solution is to put a half of that parking, that disabled parking, in the middle of the parking lot. Put it across the parking lot. Don't put it in front of the store, because it's not about being close to the store for disabled people. Me and I'm not going to speak for everybody, but it's not about necessarily being close. It's about the accessibility. Whether you're, back in the day when I was walking on crutches, if I park in a regular parking spot and I can park there and give myself enough room to open a door to get out, it's very difficult to get out if you're not able-bodied when you can't open the door all the way. And now I'm in a van that has a ramp come out. I need 8 feet for that ramp to come out. So I can't park in a regular spot. So, and I don't care if I'm close to the store or not, right? So I would gladly park in the middle of the parking lot, let the, and so I could get that ramp out. And I think that would kind of lessen that desire for the handicap placard, so you can park close, get that sweet spot. You know what I mean? So if anybody from the DMV is listening, or the state, or whoever administers these things, that's my fix, or partial fix, I guess. I think it best. I don't know if it would solve the problems.
For myself,
yeah,
I don't really mind about being close to the entrance or not either, because I'd rather be a little bit further away from the entrance than close to it, because it gives me more chance and more reason to get my steps in, even with my walking stick.
Well, yes, there's that. Exactly. Me too. I don't mind a little extra exercise. So, and it's a good, easy way to get it, right? Without having to go to the gym or pay a gym membership. Just in the normal process of life, you could be getting your exercise in. All right. Well, let's move on. Let's move on to inclusive education. You're younger than me, so you've been in the education system much more recent than I am. How was that experience for you?
Oh, come now, Doug. I'm only going to be 35 next month. But even so, I feel 1,000 years old.
Quit bragging. Nobody likes a bragger, you youngster.
I'm just saying, man.
So were you were in a mainstream school, right? And they had accommodations for you?
I remember being in a special day class from when I was a wee lad to my junior year. And after they figured out that I was too advanced for the program, they decided to mainstream me for my senior year. And because of that, I graduated a year early from high school, surprisingly.
I'm not surprised.
But it wasn't really a walk in the park as I thought it would be, because one of my biggest pet peeves and Achilles heel, if you will, was math. And to this day, I really suck at math. I'm like, if I can count to 10.
You and me both, brother. Yeah, not my forte.
And of course, the special education teachers kept kicking themselves in the head, for more so. And as they were saying, man, how could we have missed this?
Your struggle with math. How did they miss that?
Oh, no. They didn't. catch that I was too advanced for the program,
Oh,
because
yeah,
there
yeah,
were
yeah.
times where I would get where I'd finish my work super early, and I'd
Yeah.
just be sitting there throughout the whole period, like, okay, my work is done. Now, what do you want me to do? Should I take a nap on the desk, or
Yeah.
what do you want? Should I leave early? I mean, what do you want? What are you going to do with me?
Well, sounds like there was some pretty big red flags indicating that you're ready to move on a little quicker, right? You know,
Yeah,
maybe
I didn't even think I was ready to move on as quick as I did.
yeah. Well, I know my brother and I, it's been a long time ago, but I'm just thinking as I'm starting to say this, I don't remember where it started. I don't know when I first even went to school in my recollection. You know what I mean? But I imagine it was that school, and we went to a special needs school. They had a school. It was I think we talked a little bit about it in my brother's episode, but it was a two-room schoolhouse, and this is in Santa Barbara, California, and it was divided by kindergarten through fifth or so, and then sixth through senior in high school, and so kindergartners through fifth or sixth grade was all lumped together in one class. So so I don't know what your situation was, but I would imagine so. You've got one teacher teaching a class size that's maybe about the size of a traditional class, but has all those different age groups. There's got to be a different curriculum for all of them. Trying to keep all that straight, I could see where they might miss somebody's specific needs, and I know where that kind of manifested itself with us was I felt like when I went to mainstream, because I was mainstream in fifth grade. So fifth grade, we went off and got into public schools, and that's a whole nother situation that I wish I could speak to a little better. It just wasn't important to me until I got into this age, and now my parents are gone, so I can't ask them. But I'm curious about that whole process. This was, long before ADA. This was in the 60s. And so I don't know how that happened. What was the process for getting us into a mainstream school? I know that our doctor, we had an orthopedic surgeon that was involved in that process. That part I can remember. What the conversations were about, I don't know. My brother had gone a year before me, so he kind of, broke that ground a little bit. And then I went to school, but I remember kind of feeling that I was a little underprepared, for public school. I wasn't quite up to speed with some of the other students for that first maybe year or two. And then I think I got kind of back on track, but it's curious, I'm curious to know, and I wish I could ask my folks, how that whole process went. But then the rest of it, there was no, back in those days, there were no real accommodations, and my brother and I both were, very mobile, and mobility wasn't really an issue. We got around fine. The only places where was in PE, we made accommodations there. And again, I think we talked about it there, just some of the things that we would do in class, but it was all very open, this new, not, I don't want to say it's new, but there's that conversation about bullying now that is very robust, in our nation. And I'm not going to, minimize that at all. But back then I don't, there was a couple of kids that were, not as kind as others, but I don't know if it rose to the level of bullying, but I don't remember it being like a wholesale thing. I remember everybody being very open and very, eager to help us out and include us, in whatever we were doing in PE or, in class or whatever. I don't never felt
I get where
excluded.
you're coming from, Doug, because
Yeah.
even when I was in high school, bullying wasn't very uproaring or surfacing even more like today when I was in high school. Because when I was in high school, everybody got along with each other, regardless of, disability, of who you are, where you came from. But what I found really unique is that when it came to lunchtime, everybody was in their own particular groups. And, at
Yeah.
one table, you had one group. At another table, you had another group, and then at a table going towards the city, you had another group. And then to me, I'm like, it doesn't seem unusual to me. I mean, everybody's, just having lunch and minding their business. That's all.
Yeah. Well, and that's what, John Carpenter movies were made of, all the different, factions, the stoners and the other groups and how they interacted and, one person from one group trying to get to another group or, those kinds of things. So yeah, that's very, it's human nature, is I think what it comes down to. And, so I didn't experience a lot of that. And I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but you find that, again, this is my experiences, but, I found that in general, there are some people who are, people aren't drawn to, and there's other people that people are drawn to. There's the popular people, and then there's the other people that, aren't so popular. And some people, yes, I mean, I'm not going to say it didn't happen at all, because I know there were people, in my school that were not treated kindly. There was a couple, and they were different. And, so you see that and you take note of it and you learn, and, I'm not going to be that way is what I learned. I never jumped in on that, but, it's that nature of that age group. They can be unkind.
I got a message for those who want to be popular more than anything in the world, and for those who aren't so popular in school even now. Hey, don't worry about it so much, because let me tell you, you may be popular today, but once you get out of high school and become adults like us, it's not going to matter no more. I mean, you're not going to care. They're not going to care.
Yeah. You said you graduated early. That is precisely the reason why I graduated early myself, is because I looked around and saw, the people that, and not necessarily the people that were popular, but the people that were popular and thought they were all that in a bag of chips. You know what I mean? You can kind of tell those people. And that's what I'm thinking to myself back then. This is, you're in high school, you're just barely getting started. There's a whole life ahead of you. And just because you're popular in high school, doesn't mean anything in the rest of your life. You still have to go and achieve things and all of that. And I just was tired of being involved with that. So, I did everything I could to take all the classes I needed and get my credits and get out of there and move on with the real world life. Right.
Yeah, man.
That's why we're kindred spirits. We think alike. I like it. So you ready to move on to our next topic? Yeah, let's go to assistive technology, which this is where there's huge differences, right?
Let me tell you, Doug, when it comes to technology, it's come a very long way from when we were both in high school, regardless of generations.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Just in that really short amount of time. I mean, we could probably say within the last 10 years, it's exploded, right? I mean, just look at what we're doing right now. Yeah. Look what we're doing right now. I'm in my studio at my house. You're in your room at your house, where we see each other. We're talking, we're recording this. We're going to put it out on a podcast later. And that's amazing. And there's accessible features in all of this. There's closed captioning. I could press a button and we could see our conversation being typed out as we say it.
And when it comes to laptops and computers, you can make the font bigger or smaller to however you see fit. And instead of the mouse, you can wear the mouse on your head, or you can have these little rings on your fingers that are the mouse. You can go almost the Freddy Krueger gauntlet movement, if you will.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It goes on and on, right? I went to the Accessibility Expo. It kind of travels the country, and when it comes to LA, I try to get there every year. And I noticed a couple of years ago that one of the big gaming manufacturers was there. I don't know if it was the PS or Xbox or one of those was there. And I'm like, that's interesting that you're here. And I got to talking with a guy, and he was talking about all the accessible things that they put in games, and some of those innovations that they have, not only in games, but just throughout life, their inception was to try to accommodate and help somebody with a, something that would make a game or something accessible, but it's turned out to be a feature for everybody that everybody enjoys, and that's one of the things, that the technologies have improved the quality of life for people with disabilities and all of us as well,
Yeah, let me tell you, man, when it comes to gaming, even Nintendo Wii is still relevant to this day. I mean, me and my father-in-law, the V, we do power cruising on the Wii, we do golfing on the Wii, we do bowling on the Wii, table tennis, boxing, you name it.
Yeah, all of it. Exactly. And, I think in the not too distant past, a lot of assistive technology, if you were talking about that, you were talking about things like what would be termed as durable medical equipment, crutches and braces and wheelchairs and shower chairs and all of those kinds of things, pull bars and all of that. So it was more of a physical world. Now it's definitely moved over into the technology. And there's things for speech, and there's things for blindness, and, just apps on your phone. I grew up at a time when it was creative thinking to think about, Dick Tracy was big when I was a kid in comics and TV shows and all that. And Dick Tracy had this watch, and one of the big deals was like when he would talk to somebody, he could call somebody and there would be a picture of that person he was talking to on the watch. Well, obviously now we have that, but we have so much more. It's so far beyond what anybody imagined with that watch. It's replaced so many things, and there's so many things that we can do with the phone with assistive technology. It's amazing.
I'll have to give Dick Tracy props with that watch, because it seems like he was pretty ahead of his time. I mean, he can give Inspector Gadget a run for his money.
That's right. You got it. He ahead of his times, huh? All right. We could this might have to be a 2-hour episode, but because we can go on and on. We're only getting close to halfway through all of our topics.
Of the saga.
Yeah, right. Well, one of the other things is the representation in media. What have you seen in the recent past year?
Well, like on the news, they're starting to show not only just closed captioning, but they're showing interpreting as well.
Mm-hmm. And you see it at events.
Yes and no, Doug. But But let me talk a little bit about closed captioning. Closed captioning is a very, very handy tool, but the con of closed captioning is that it may not catch up or match what you're talking about. The sign language works because it sometimes work as a backup if the closed captioning is not yet caught up to you or repeating what you're saying.
I'm sure we've all experienced that, right? Where you're, because I my hearing is not what it used to be as I advance in age. So a lot of times I've got the closed captioning on just when I'm watching a movie, because, and I'll be reading it because I can't hear every little nuance of every little word, especially if the music and sound effects gets a little louder. Yeah, I know I'm old. So, but what I'm amazed by is that's pretty good in a movie, because they've got the script and they can write it all on there. But when I watch and I have the closed captioning on live events, like you say, yes, it's delayed quite a bit most of the time. But so many times when I miss something and I go to read it, they've missed it too. They'll just put, unintelligible. But the other thing is when they do get it, and now I've heard it, but I'm also reading it, they get it wrong. And what they get wrong is like an entirely different intention than the speaker had to say. I'm like, geez. So what were you thinking?
Another thing I discovered this past week is that if the closed captions doesn't work, they have another feature somewhere where you can enable the description, where they can tell what outfit, what color outfit they're wearing, what's it look like, what their hair looks like, things like that. I thought that was pretty cool.
And there's a lot of that for websites where you can build that into websites, and there's description. I'm starting to kind of explore putting our podcasts up on YouTube, and as a matter of fact, I had shared it to a YouTube channel that I had, and it was putting them up there kind of unbeknownst to me. And because I don't go to the channel very often, but I went back and and noticed that there were a number of them that were already posted, and we were getting a lot of listens because it's just a podcast with a picture. There's no video really, but several of them had several listens to them or views, and that was without ever promoting that channel or ever trying. So how those folks are finding it, I don't know, but I'm glad we're getting that extra boost there. And what was I going to say about these? Just putting that stuff up. And I know what it was. I'm kind of exploring us also doing that. So we put what we're doing here visually up on YouTube. I haven't gotten to that point because that's just another task for me to do in our little 1-man band here, 2-man band. So I haven't gotten that far yet, but we'll see. I kind of toy with it every day and try to learn a little bit extra to see how I can do it. So moving on to representation in media. So what do you think? Are we seeing more disabled individuals in movies and TV shows and other forms of media? Yeah.
But more like on a smaller scale. I mean, they may not be like a very well known movie or production, but it's a start.
Yeah. I think where you see it the most, and I have in the last couple of years, and I think it is part of the greater discussion with social justice and probably more of the diversity in people of color and those kinds of things. But I'm glad to see that they've also addressed it with the disabled folks. You just see them more in, not necessarily in starring roles or anything like that, but commercials is where you're seeing that across the board. We all see much more diversity in commercials these days. And, that goes for disabled people. You'll see how quickly edited commercials are with quick little shots of different things. And you'll see somebody in a wheelchair just in a day-to-day life kind of situation. Not that they're highlighting, it's not the theme of the commercial, which I like myself personally, that we're just included as a regular part of life.
Heck, speaking of which, I remember watching The Walking Dead a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
In one season, they had a character who actually required sign language, and some of the people who were fighting all the zombies and stuff were actually doing sign language interpretation just for that individual on the show, which I found pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I think they're doing a good job, and I think it will continue to grow. One of the things too, and I've got to say, is with all of these changes, I'm amazed, and maybe I shouldn't be, because how do I put this? It's not, sometimes when you try to advance something, you may not get the quality. You know what I mean? If they're picking somebody based on the fact that they're in a chair or they're a person of color, sometimes you would think that they're not going to be as talented, say. But man, I'm impressed. I don't know. I would tiptoe around saying these kinds of things because I don't know if I'm off base at all. But I feel how they've been slighted. Because there were talented people out there. Obviously, there was a need for change, I guess is the best way to put it, because there are talented people out there that doesn't look like they were getting their shot. So there's no lack of quality acting, as much as it can be quality acting in a commercial. But I'm very impressed, very impressed. So next, accessible design. I don't know if I've qualified at all. I don't know if I know what that means. I guess the principles of universal design, how it could benefit. I think I kind of get that. Yeah, I think it's kind of what we were talking before about the games. When you have a fix for something that's was intended for somebody with a disability, it just benefits everybody, right?
Right. I like the Nintendo Wii because regardless of what game or what sport you're playing, I like the fact that it actually gets us up moving around with the remote control in our hand, regardless of what we're doing.
Yeah,
and it's really
definitely.
a great exercise.
I think that was when Wii was introduced. I think that was one of the great benefits that they even, rightfully so, they touted, was the fact that, it's a game that gets you on your feet. And most everything on Wii's that way, right? You're on your feet, you're moving around, you're getting your exercise.
And one of the things that really drives me and my father-in-law to be crazy is that when we're doing the golf, he always tells me that I have this backspin going on when it comes to golfing. He's like, dude, how are you doing that? I'm like, I wish I knew. Because what I would do is I would do my swing, I would hit the ball like normal. What's crazy is that the ball would go either backwards or forwards, like, and then right in the hole like a car.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck?
That's good. So, and one of my favorite cartoons, I don't know if you've ever seen this cartoon. It's just a one panel cartoon, and it's like a custodian at a school, elementary school, and he's shoveling the steps. Have you seen this? He's shoveling the steps, and everybody's waiting for him to shovel the steps so they can get up. And there's a couple of kids in wheelchairs at the bottom of and next to the steps there's a ramp, right? So he's clearing the steps, and somebody says, if you cleared the ramp first, we could all get up. So it just kind of demonstrates that it doesn't have to be either or. If you clear the ramp, everybody can use the ramp, but only people that are walking can use the stairs. So if you clear those first, you're making a number of people wait. So anyway, that's I think it just demonstrates that accessible design where it's good for everybody. I think it does perfect. And I've seen a number of things online where they've instead of you've seen the add-ons where they add on a ramp, kind of a retrofit a ramp on an old building, kind of messes up sometimes the architecture of a building. But when they design it into the architecture of a building, it can be very aesthetically pleasing. All right, let's move on to advocacy and activism. And that's one of those things that it can be kind of micro or it can be macro. And I think we've all kind of addressed something in our lives that would make our life better with somebody. And that's kind of a singular fight. Anything come to mind in your life?
When I think about it this way, the way I see it, I think they made doors so people could walk right through them. And I think either with guys like you and me, if we do it for this generation, we can only hope that they'll do it for the next generation after. And that's what it really comes down to, is opening doors so people can walk right through them.
Yeah. And I think that there again, we go back to accessible design. There are so many, and I didn't know this for a long time, but just something like a doorknob. You see the doorknobs, that's a traditional knob, and then you see the handle, and I didn't realize for a long time that was designed to be accessible. So if somebody can't grasp a knob with their hand and turn it, that's where they came up with that lever. So you could put your hand on it and just push it down without having to grasp it, and you can open that door. So, there's so many things like that.
And then there's that thing where people push the buttons and the door opens.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that'll work. Sometimes it won't work due to it probably needs some maintenance that I've looked at half the time. I've seen that in grocery stores, but I'm eager to see that in homes.
Yeah, it would be nice. And the other thing is, and this is again, it's a little detail that folks don't think about. And I'm talking about the people that, like, if you own a store, there is a minimum that's set by ADA to be ADA compliant, that it takes no more than, I think, 4 pounds to open a door, 4 pounds of pressure. Well, when you're in a chair, you notice if it's more than 4 pounds, because you're on wheels and you have to, when you're pushing on that door, if it's more than 4 pounds, you're not moving the door, you're pushing your chair back, and it can be a struggle to get through that door. And, and that, again, I can't fault, well, they're not totally exonerated, but I can't be too hard on the store owner. That's just a level of detail that, how is every store owner going to know? But that's where you have to be an advocate. You have to bring that up to the store owner and say, is there a way you can adjust that door or get somebody in here to adjust that door? Because there's adjustments on them, and they can, you can change the pressure on it, what it takes to open a door. So just some of those things. If you run into those things, mention it to a store owner. They may or may not. That's where you kind of start, at least I do, I start with that simple request, and then if I deal with it too much, and then I start to kind of amp it up. I had to do that with my doctor's office, bless their heart, especially my cardiologist, whenever I go and I get an echocardiogram once a year. And part of that is laying on an exam table and turning on your side so that they can, access your heart from the side. Well, it got to a point where I couldn't get on the exam table anymore. And so, I asked them about getting a accessible exam table. And, I got a lot of lip service and this went on for a couple of years. And I even went to the point of researching it. First of all, they weren't that expensive. They were like $800. So, in a doctor's office, with a bunch of doctors, don't want to make assumptions, but it seems like you can afford that for your practice. Plus, on top of that,
man, come on.
Yeah. Plus, on top of that, I can't be the only person that needs that. I'm going to a cardiologist's office. I sit in the lobby, and I think in the mid 50s, I contracted polio, so you could do the math. You know what age I'm in, and I'm one of the younger people there. I see other people that I wheel myself in a wheelchair. There's other people whose children are probably nearer my age that are pushing their parents in a wheelchair into that place. They're not getting on an exam table, or if they are, it's very difficult. So there is a need beyond me. This is not just selfish. So finally they did get one. And the thing is that accessible, again, that accessible exam table can be raised higher. So it would be at the same level as a non-accessible table. So they're not losing anything by getting an accessible table. So finally, one day I come in there and they finally had one. Hallelujah. Good. So those are the kinds of things that, you have to kind of just step up and speak up about when you need those things. And there are people that can help you if your voice isn't enough. There are people you can contact and help. And that's part of what Rolling Start does, that I work with. They have an advocate.
It goes back to one of my favorite sayings, Doug.
Yep.
What one cannot do, many can.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we have an advocate on staff that will help you with things like that. You can, I can't remember now. I know I contacted my lawyer to draft a letter to send to them, and I can't remember. I think maybe the table came in, the exam table came in before I had to send it, because I don't want to get adversarial like that, but I need I deserve a level of care that everybody else is getting, right? And anybody
man.
Yeah. All right. All righty. That's enough of that. Health and wellness. I guess that kind of covered that a little bit, but those are the things I think sometimes we have outside concerns and issues when we're a person of disability that a doctor may not see every day, and our disabilities may impact the kinds of things that they do see every day, and they don't have the expertise or the experience to see how they might impact those. How you exactly address that, I haven't figured out for myself yet. So if you have any ideas, please, I'd love to hear them. I do my best, for myself, but I'm not even sure. Have you had that experience, Eric?
Yeah, my thing is I'm trying to stay as healthy, as strong as I possibly can. I'm starting to actually, see the difference when I work out and when I do work out personally, because when I work out, I feel like there's 10 of me, but when I don't do it, I feel as if I'm dead as a doornail.
Yeah.
And I know, even in my heart, I'm not going to be like how I was in my 20s, but hey, I can still be strong and healthy no matter how old I get.
Yeah, heck yeah. I know, I shouldn't get off on these tangents. I know a gentleman that for the longest time, I thought he was, around my age, probably late 60s. And I got in a conversation with him one day, and he's talking about, he's retired, And he's talking about, he just would take off in the middle of the week and he'd take off up to Mammoth and go skiing. And well, I'm impressed, first of all, that he's still skiing at the age I thought he was. Turns out he was like 82 years old. And I'm like, wow. I mean, I don't know. Why am I telling that story? It's just because, you can't be that age and still, I'm a wreck. I feel like I'm a wreck, and part of that's, is brought on because of my disability, directly related. And then part of it's collateral damage from my disability, if you know what I mean. But wow, that was impressive. And, part of me is like, wow, you mean I could be that active and I could be that mobile and all of that still? How did you get to that place? Or is it just genetics? I have no answers. So anyway, that'll lead us. Yes, go.
I think I may know the answer.
Oh, good. I'm writing it down.
I think he has what they call love the game, because regardless of how old he is or what circumstances, he just loves the game, period, end of story.
Oh, yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah, you could tell that was his passion. Yes. And, it was funny because, too, he was saying that, for him, he's retired, so he could go in the middle of the week. And he was like the only older person. Everybody else was young, people that didn't maybe have jobs yet or whatever. And, plus it's nowhere near the crowds that you would see on the weekends, but he definitely was a standout. Yeah. Okay, so that leads us right into sports and recreation, your favorite topic.
Well, let me tell you, sports and recreation has really come a long way, even for people with disabilities. Like half the stuff I see today, I never heard about or saw in high school. Like, let's name a couple. There's archery for the blind. There's soccer for the blind. There's judo for the blind. There's biathlon. There's sledding for people in chairs. There's wheelchair boxing. And I watch a lot of videos on YouTube of people working out with no legs at all. They have canes, walkers, wheelchairs. They have one arm, one leg, no lower half of their body, and they're still doing everything you could think of.
Absolutely. It
amazes the heck out of me, man.
I don't think I brought this up, but at the convention that I went to last weekend, they showed a video of a young man who, at 14 years old, I think it was, I don't know if it was genetic, but he lost his eyesight. I think it was failing. Then at one point, literally just like one day he woke up and his world was black. And he was about 14 years old. And he, up until that point, he was the athlete. He did softball. He did this. He rode his bike, all of those things. And, he kind of went through that process of, how am I going to adapt to my new world? Well, I don't know all the specifics of the story over this video, because now he's like probably your age, mid-30s. Now he is an off-road mountain biker. And not only that, but he is a competitive off-road biker. So there's video of this guy riding his bike through the wooded areas, through paths, with a tree, multiple trees on either side of the path, near as 2 or 3 feet from him. And he does it through something called echolocation. So he can't see a thing, but so I don't know the details of how this works, but somehow through sound, I guess with the sound going out and coming back to him, much like a bat, he somehow can see, quote unquote, where things are, and he misses them. So I've invited him to come on the show. So I haven't gotten a response yet, but hopefully I have a whole list of people like that I've invited to be on the show, different sports figures and other people with disabilities who are fairly prominent.
For bats,
Say again.
It's scientifically true even for bats. I mean, if bats can't hear, they can't tell where they're going.
Yeah. But a human being, who doesn't have that skill that's been, has been developed to that extent, he certainly has. I don't know how many people out there or at his level. That would be something I'd like to ask him, but it's amazing.
And I understand where you're coming from with that part, because even if you're brand new to the very nature, it takes a little bit to actually get to adapt and get used to it.
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah.
something you can't really learn overnight.
No, no. Yeah, absolutely. And that's, when my brother and I were young, that was one of those things that all of our friends were riding bikes. So that's one of those things that we wanted to do. It'd be cool if we could ride a bike. If there was a bike somehow where we could pedal it with our hands, we didn't have the skills or anything to make something like that. But now those are everywhere. There's
Like, I had this friend who was a visually a challenge, if you will. She was an Air Force veteran, and even though she couldn't really see the expression on my faces, judging by the tone of my voice, she could tell whether I'm sad, angry, or being sarcastic.
Yeah.
It all comes back to sound.
So she had developed that.
Or if she was able to listen to my heartbeat, she could even tell by the rhythm, if I was healthy or out of shape. Little things like that, Doug, amazes the heck out of me, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, the hand cycle that I got through possibilities, it led me to doing a triathlon. I went and did a few half marathons and, just rode around my neighborhood for fun. And, that opened up a world of playing rugby, wheelchair rugby. I tried tennis a couple of times, which was fun. There's so much out there. It's amazing. So, encourage you, if you haven't tried so far, try to see if there's a local program where you are and check it out, because exercise is essential to all of us. And, it can be fun as well. You don't have to do it just in some, kind of a mundane way,
And let me tell you, with all this adaptive equipment for sports alone, it's taught me that there's always more than one way to skin a cat.
Yes, absolutely. Well, listen, we've gone on quite a long time on these topics, and appreciate you listening. Once again, thanks for listening to a couple of guys that don't have any real expertise other than our own personal experiences. So thank you for listening and giving us the open-mindedness to kind of hear our thoughts on these things. Take them or leave them, agree or not, but thank you. And if you have any ideas about anything that we've talked about here in the last hour, shoot us an email. I'd love to hear it. If you some of the things that we raised that we were kind of having a hard time with, struggling a little bit, maybe to some solutions or answers. If you have some solutions, love to hear those. So shoot us an email at warlive, WARLIVE at walkandrolllive.com, or you can go to the website walkandrolllive.com, and there's a contact form in there. You can send us some information. All right. Thank you for listening from the Aguiar Professional Training Studio. We're going to take a quick break. Yeah, Eric, and then we'll come right back and kind of close things out.
See you in a bit, folks.
What I know about courage, I learned from my adoptive mom. She said sometimes you just gotta hold on and know we'll get through this. Mom, we are so high up. Hold my hand.
No, you hold my hand.
Here we go.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more. This message is brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
Well, thank you once again for joining us on Walk and Roll Live. Just going to wind down here a little bit. Usually in this section, I like to remind you, well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for listening and coming back week after week. We appreciate that. Appreciate you telling your friends and family and all of that about what we're doing here. And if you have any suggestions for folks that we can interview, would love to kind of get outside of our little bubble a little more. Trying to think, I don't have anybody scheduled for next week, so I better get on that. Reached out to a few people, but coming up, I'm going to have accessible travel expert come on. So we'll talk about traveling with a disability. We'll do that in a few weeks. And who else? I know I've got a few lined up. I just need to, I'd love to get some more individuals that aren't kind of friends or acquaintances or people we've met through our circle, to get them from across the country, the world. We can do this from anywhere. So love to hear any suggestions that you have. Again, comments, suggestions there, good and bad. Love to hear it. Any changes you think we should make to the show, we're open to any thoughts. And also, if there's any resources that you're looking for, we have a resource page on our website, walkandrolllive.com. And if you don't find the research or the resource you're looking for, let us know and we'll try to track something down. Or if you track something down that you think should be on our resource page, let us know. All right. That's all I got. Anything you want to close out with there, my man?
I just want to say, don't forget, folks, Halloween is coming up. We will have a Halloween edition just for all you Halloween fans. Be sure on the lookout for that one. And I just want to say right here, right now, from the bottom of my heart, never give up and always chase after your dreams. We'll see you later, folks. Have a good one.
Walk and Roll Live is heard around the world at walkandrolllive.com, Podbean, and Spotify. Like us at facebook.com/walkandrolllive. You can email us at warlive@walkandrolllive.com with comments, observations, or whatever's on your mind. Have a topic you'd like to hear or a guest you think would be great for the show? Let us know. Look for new episodes every Tuesday afternoon. Thanks for listening.